Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One, episode 174. Very special one this time around as well. I'm talking to two co founders of a very cool company, which I personally love. I've personally been a fan of for a while now. And they're building something amazing. It's not your usual tech play, and I think it's actually something a lot deeper. Uh, uh, and very very important as you hear in the conversation that follows. I'm of course talking about the company called Ultra Human. From its cool sounding name to the cool people behind it, I'm in conversation with Mohit Kumar and Vatsal Singhal, the co-founders of this very very cool tech plus healthcare startup. To know what Ultra Human is all about, stay tuned right after this break, and let's go and talk to them.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, content strategist Manish Pandey shares useful insights about the creator economy with Varun. On The Longest Constitution, it's an Ambedkar special. Priya tells us about the father of the Indian Constitution. On Shunya One, Sheila Ditya asks Mihir Gupta, CEO and co-founder of Teachment, about his dream of changing the Indian education system. On Big Talk About Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share how to navigate the delicate process of LGBTQIA kids coming out to their parents. And on Tere Mere Raste, Kesho takes us to the birthplace of so many great films, Universal Studios. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do please tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. You can check us out on YouTube as well. On ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, we have a list of all of our YouTube channels. Do check out if your favorite show is available as full video. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We'd really, 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 really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week: SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Vatsal, Mohit, how are you guys doing?
Hey,
All
thank you
good.
so much. All good.
Good to see you.
I know. Good to see you guys. Well, virtually. I have, let's say, had the privilege of chatting with you guys a lot on various forums, I guess, given that I've been a little bit of a fanboy of what you guys have been building. Uh, Not so much early, but I would say throughout the journey. And
Yeah.
especially, I think now I even am a mini influencer, if you might call it that. So. So welcome to Shunya
Yeah.
One, and thank you for thanks that we finally got to do this. You guys
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
obviously not new to podcasting; you have your own. Uh, but we on this show, at least the folks who listen, love to get into a little bit of background on, let's say, why you guys chose to do what you do, and your personal journey a little bit as well. So uh, why don't either of you go first and maybe share a little bit of that background, and also how you guys got together. Whoever, Mohit, if you want to go first.
Yeah. So I can start with the uh, with I think how we know each other. So I think we we know each other from the last 16 years now because we did our
Wow.
engineering together,
Yeah.
and for the first part of our life, of course, like there was no we didn't know what to do, right? Like everyone else out there. So all we knew was to have fun. um, like in engineering colleges, how do you figure out different ways to kill time and have fun? That's what we were experts at. And of
Mhm.
course, computer science and computers were very very interesting to us. So that was like the common theme. um,
Right.
this is an iPhone bug. My music started playing while I was talking, but yeah, I was saying that yeah, we have been working together almost on different things. Sometimes having fun in college, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
then of course formally started working together since 2015 when we started Roadrunner. Um, Roadrunner's journey was interesting. I was after, like, I think I started Roadrunner after two gigs. One was a engineering gig and one was a product gig. I used to lead a product at Ola Cabs before my journey at Roadrunner. And I think both of us, both Vatsal and I, we are very enthusiastic about the idea around that the benefits of a network effect in transportation can be replicated to the network effects in logistics. That was the core idea. And what used to happen parallelly was that our passion used to be like personal passion used to be around fitness and health, and then this used to be like another you can say another passion in life, right? So two things. We used to often start with a topic around business, technology, logistics, and then sort of like converge around that. Oh, this is what's happening um, in health or in fitness, the new wearable, the new gadget, the new technology. I used to also sort of like be very active in sort of like the cycling scene in India, like the randonneering scene and the mixed martial arts scene as well for some time. So that's probably what the early beginnings was. Vatsal, if you want to add something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think college is where we got, of course, connected, and since then, like I was doing a lot of engineering, in a company called ThoughtWorks for a period of, I think, 5 years. And 2015 we started off, but I think I got the health and fitness bug from Mohit. Right, he started very early, if you ask me, in very very passionate about cycling, and typically how cyclists are always talking about new
Yeah.
gadgets, and like spending all their money on various carbon
It's an
fiber.
expensive sport. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
expensive sport, right? So I was like, okay, am I missing something in life? And like, so I also started, of course, like when you're building a startup, you typically don't care about your health. You're like always
Yeah.
sprinting, and I think both of us realized during by building Runner that even if we want to be productive, health and fitness is a part of lifestyle. It's something that you have to do, right? To build a large org, it's in not like it's something that you can keep aside and bring back at a later point when you're settled, or your like org is
Yeah.
doing well. It's a lifestyle that you have to inculcate, and both of us got very deep into understanding what the protocols are, what people do globally, right? And the culture of health and fitness isn't as deep in India versus, let's say, when we
Right.
went to like a lot of European countries and traveled around, right? So I think we felt over the course of building Runner and then Zomato that there is so much to do, and so much impact that can be created by just introducing technology in this space, and data as a whole, right? There is so much data available, but of course people aren't leveraging it as much, which of course like top athletes today do. They already are vested into variables, they're vested into their progress, and incrementally measure themselves every day, right? Which
Right.
and every minute for the matter, right? So I mean, we realized that over the journey, and of course it actually started off with
Nice.
Mohit's amazing journey again at martial art camp. Mohit, talk about that.
Wow.
Yes, here's what happened. So we spent like almost 7 years, actually 6 years,
Mm.
building the food delivery business, and I had gotten like super bored um, of two things. One is building a startup and thinking about startups, basically. So it was
They
like the
come hand
new
in
idea
hand. Yeah.
fatigue. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like the new idea fatigue that I was going to get out of Zomato, and I used to think that, like, oh, let's start a new business. But I was like, I'm like really fatigued about like new ideas. Like, it doesn't appeal to me. So what should I do, right? And I thought that maybe I'll do nothing, and if I do nothing, maybe something will come to me naturally. Uh, so nothing basically meant having a lot of fun again, which is
Right.
what we did in engineering. And then I started Fun Chapter Part Two in life, which was at a martial arts camp. The name of the
Your
camp
idea
is
of fun is unique. I must say.
I thought that,
Yeah.
I mean, the fun that I used to understand largely was either like basically masochistic or with a lot of pain, or lazing around. So nothing in between.
Right.
And I think same was there for Vatsal as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I did was I actually went to this martial arts camp called Tiger Muay Thai. It's a phenomenal place to train because on one side you have these gigantic mountains, like island mountains, that you can
Hmm.
climb early in the morning, like run up the hill. and then
Wow.
basically you can train for like 6-7 hours, and then after your training you can chill at the beach. So you have everything basically out there.
Nice.
And some of
Yeah.
the topmost like UFC fighters and athletes actually go and ahead and train there. So what we used to do, Vatsal and I, because I had a lot of time to kill and he was still like sort of like grinding at Zomato, I used to call him up because I had nobody to call and discuss startup ideas and talk about like what can we build. And we discussed like bunch of like horrible ideas like building a new Zoom and all of those things.
Yeah.
Can't like don't want to reveal everything given how
Okay.
horrible those were.
Okay.
But we used to like basically have these like 1.5-2 hour conversations, and finally at the end used to talk about, oh, this is a cool type of technology and this is a cool type of wearable that people are using in biohacking. This is what's happening. We used to talk about IVs, we used to talk about implants, we used to talk about different type of nutraceuticals, different protocols of exercise. But I think what was really interesting for both of us was largely the usage of data in fitness, and essentially the ability of data to like tell you exactly how can you improve, as well as in a precise way, how can you improve in a precise way, and how can you actually track progress as well. So that felt very very interesting with the introduction of biomarkers in the world of fitness. And like the new biomarkers would include things like heart rate variability, resting heart rate, sleep tracking, and glucose tracking. And out of this list, glucose seemed really interesting, primarily to begin with because it had a direct way to give feedback on your food than anything else. um,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
seemed interesting because like it's a huge part of your lifestyle.
Yeah. In fact, just to add, I think when we were thinking about ideas, right? We didn't want to, and both of us are foodies, and we love various cuisines. We try everything, whatever is out there. So we didn't want to build, let's say health and fitness in the way that it is portrayed today, right? Where you have to follow a diet, you have to let's say have a very strict lifestyle. Right, but I think health and fitness as a problem statement has to be a lot easier, right? It has to be
Mhm.
for everyone. It shouldn't be for a niche users who can do a keto, who can do a paleo, or who can go to the gym. Right, it has to be,
Mm.
it should be a very simple answer, right? And that is what we were searching for, that how do we make sure that we continue living our amazing lives, which is centered around food, and still be able to make that impact that we want people to have, right, in their life.
And given obviously the Zomato part of your journey, I would imagine food was front and center regardless, in spite of Mohit's
Yeah.
eclectic, I would say, hobbies. Uh, and but when you looked at it from again the startup lens, right? One is building, let's say, a logistics heavy, systems heavy sort of startup, which was Roadrunner, and then going into the world of, let's say, electronic devices, health tech. While it's obviously, I mean, I can say I love the latest gadget like anyone. uh, Especially if you're an engineer, you tend to, like you said, have fun by indulging in all of the coolest tech. But building that, going from that being an enthusiast to being, let's say, the specialist in doing what you're doing, how was that journey, and how much, how did you sort of, let's say, get the conviction to actually go down this path of building a technology based consumer product?
Right. So I think one of the things that we realized quite early in the journey, and still like I would say that it's still an evolving thought, is the fact that if you box yourself as a software company or a hardware company or a logistics company or a let's say a processes company or an operations company, it might leave out some opportunities to create a deeply integrated experience. Now the most cliche way to say it is what for example what Steve Jobs used to quote, that if you're serious about your software you should build your own hardware. um,
Hmm.
and what he really meant was that if there is a new experience that you want to create, um, you cannot basically box yourself in one dimension. You have to basically think that I have to cover five different things in the business or the product that I'm creating to deliver a novel or a new type of experience. And that's what we wanted to do in the field of health as well. It was so confusing, like essentially not just for as a business, but also as an individual, right? If we try we when we started to uh, get you can say fit in our 30s again, let's say. So I was, I think, 31, and the last time I had gotten extremely fit was actually, I think you can say 22, 20 to 25, basically. So there was this 5 6 years of gap, and then when I started getting fit again, it was so confusing. Like some people were doing keto, some people were essentially on paleo diets, some people were essentially in calorie restriction, um, different exercise protocols, different exercise platforms out there. Somehow, most of the folks out there were not seeing results, right? Like I can say that like 80% of the folks were either unsatisfied, or you can say they're putting in a lot of effort, but they were unable to see a lot of, you can say, results. And either folks would be very very extremists, or they would turn out to be like very very, like they would give up like very very soon, right? So extremists meaning like fast for 7 days and then biryani for 7 days, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um, so that was the insight, probably, like I think that was one of the insights, that let's build data. Let's basically create a platform that gives you the visibility of your own biological data. And one of the things that really helped us in the early days was actually not interest in electronics, but actually interest in the human biology, right? And essentially the interest in the ability to understand how metabolism works, hormonal systems work, like that involved reading a bunch of medical books, interactions with doctors, sports scientists, and that is sort of like our bread and butter conversation even today. Like a lot of time that goes into learning new methods and concepts and theories and therapies. And these are, by the way, very very conflicting as well. Like essentially it's not like
Yeah.
they're all aligned and moving the same direction. Like the research that has come out around ketogenic diets 2 years back is highly conflicting the research 5 years back. Like essentially in terms of how, like the latest research says that insulin does not matter, fat cells make you like help sort of like create some sort of insulin resistance in your body. Whereas the research prior to that basically said that, oh, insulin resistance creates more fat cells, or essentially does not allow oxidation of fat. So there are, the medical industry and the health tech industry and the fitness industry is sort of like it's at its loggerheads always, right? And
Right.
what's true though is human health data, which is if you can see results for yourself, if you can make progress for yourself, track it in real time, then you can iterate in your own small lab, your own body.
Wow. Your own small lab is the very interesting way you put it. But what's
Yeah.
you wanted to add?
Yeah, yeah. I think what we, like I was saying, right, what we fundamentally believed was that lifestyle fix is what we understood was the biggest leverage in anyone's life, right? Because if you tell someone that, hey, get up in the morning, go for a 5 kilometer run, and then eat salad, and then like sleep on time, anyone will get fit, right? It's such a obvious and a easy probable answer, right? But can people make that change that is so dramatic in their life, which is like letting go of their food, doing a rigorous workout day in day out? Like most people aren't that disciplined, right? So I think, like, understanding the lowest hanging fruit, or the the problem area is the key, right? And that can only be done if you are looking at data in real time, right? If you are, let's say, taking guesses that, okay, probably the chapati that I'm having is a problem maker, you'll change it. You, like, most people when they start on the journey, they're like, okay, they'll remove sugar from their tea. That's not even a
Right.
drop in, in like in the ocean, that
Yeah.
you're changing, that you're thinking you're changing, you're sacrificing, but as actually is not making any impact in your body, right? You're actually mentally getting stressed because of removing that that sugar from your tea. So I think we wanted to crack that, okay, what's the easiest way where you get the maximum impact in your life, right? And I think those protocols that are out there, of course, they are great, they work as well. Like if you do HIIT for the next 6 months, you'll definitely see dramatic results. But most people, which is more than 85%, drop off in a period of 2 weeks, right? So how do we make sure that people are able to progress with their own lifestyle and just remove the bad actors, right? That when you start seeing those improvements in your life, is when you can, you know, go aggressive, when you can, you know, like make those, you know, like tough changes as well. Then you're like, okay,
Right.
motivated, you know, I'm seeing improvement. I want to do more. I want to, you know, cut out on my dinner. I want to, you know, start running. I want to start, you know, HIIT as well. So everything happens, you know, in progression. It can't be like, okay, Jan 1st, I am, you know, I'm gonna lose, you know, 10 kgs, and it's not gonna happen. Most people, you know, like people don't
Yeah.
even cross Jan when they sign up for the membership, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's problem.
What
It's
what
a
what
huge
are some of
problem.
your Shiladitya, what are some of your observations? I know that
Yeah.
you're a foodie yourself, and you love food, and
Yes.
you're probably as passionate about food as us. Uh,
Yes.
so,
I I think I
what are your
think
thoughts?
I think what I was going to ask was also related, because what you're essentially talking about, as at least from the solving the problem lens of what is that problem you're solving, apart from the awesome science and the really legit science behind it, I think you're solving first for the human psychology of motivation, right? You're making giving people their own lab data in real time and causing them to feel a little incentivized to make a change, versus just listening to a readout of, okay, this is your diet and this is what you follow, and the only real time data you get in a diet is, like, most people just measure their weight or inches or something like that. But to answer your question, Mohit, I mean, that's exactly why I think I love the Ultra Human product as well, because uh, being a foodie, you can't avoid your cravings. You don't want to. You indulge because it makes you feel good. It probably makes you, do things which you want to do in life, right? So making that lifestyle change, even though I know I need to do it, even though I know I need to be fitter than what I am, is not easy just when I'm being told what to do. When I see it myself, that this is what's happening every time I eat, let's say, a biryani or a pizza or something else. uh, I see that there's, my body is telling me, instead of just someone else, a dietitian, telling me, let's say, that this is bad for you or this is good for you. And I think that's what uh, made that mental switch for me as well. So I think that is the way I see it, and I think that's an important insight which you guys probably also stumbled upon as you build this.
Absolutely. No, I think that's really good. Really great to know,
Yeah.
because I think the fact that you were able to figure out a way to live with your own foods that you love,
Right.
and then basically figure out a path is probably
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
way possible, because it's a win-win, right? In many ways.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even if I have changed something, like I said, I changed it very consciously, knowing that, oh,
Hmm.
this is, I can still have this, maybe in lesser frequency, maybe in a different sequence. I mean, things which you'd realize that you never thought of would make a difference, also started to make a difference, right? That's
Yeah.
that granularity of data that you guys were able to
Yeah.
provide. But I want to go more into the science, obviously, because there's so much more to go in there. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break, let people get their cups of coffee or other indulgences, and come back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On this round is on me. Gauri talks to friend of the network, Viral Jani. Viral is the EVP and country head for TimesBridge India. He tells us how his company helps marquee global brands set up shop in India. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam talks to Sairi Chahal, CEO and founder of Sheroes, and Mahila Money. They discuss why women need a fair perspective on finance. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita take a look at YouTube's interest in podcasting and the new super app Tata Neo. On IVM Likes, Antariksh, Snehal and Sparsh cover all the latest movie releases from Moon Knight to RRR. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav traces the history of the clove and how it was smuggled across borders. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do please tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. You can check us out on YouTube as well. On ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, we have a list of all of our YouTube channels. Do check out if your favorite show is available as full video. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows, and advertising on the network. We'd really, 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 really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week: SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are in conversation with Mohit and Vatsal from the Ultra Human team, and you guys obviously shared so much background on, let's say, the why and how you came to be. How you guys obviously have spent a lot of your entrepreneur journey together as well. But one thing I want to really go into, especially before we go into the science, also is that why did you, from a consumer lens, also think that this is the right time or market to actually build something like this? Because while you guys were personally enthusiasts, did you see that the rest of the let's say landscape was also changing a little bit, where people were okay to measure data in such real time? Were they is Was the market becoming more conscious about fitness? Did the lockdown in any way also change, let's say, people's viewpoint on what they need to do? Tell us a little bit of that research as well, which sort of gave you this additional conviction.
Sure. So to be honest, we are a little early in this space. We believe that because a little early. The only insight that we had before starting the company and thinking about the product in the way that we are thinking was the magnitude of the problem. Now, if you look at the scale of the problem, over a billion people suffer from like at least a marker of a metabolic disorder. Now, these markers essentially could lead to things like obesity, unnatural, like you can say uncontrolled weight gain, diabetes, pre-diabetes, of course, hypertension, some certain forms of cancer, and now Alzheimer's is being classified as type 3 diabetes, as we know.
Wow.
So what's shocking is the fact that um, while this rate of people turning metabolically disordered is increasing, it has actually accelerated over the last few years. So if you look at all different types of internet problems, like most industries have actually become more efficient. E-commerce has become more efficient. Transportation has potentially become more efficient. We're making strides in energy by in terms of like basically launching more electric vehicles, etc. Right? But healthcare and specifically within healthcare, metabolic disorders are the one is the one sector basically where we saw that the problem is actually degrading. It's not becoming more efficient. It's becoming harder for people to actually become more aware about this. One of the reasons why it was getting harder was because of the incidence of you can say foods that sort of like would have adulterants or would be processed foods. And the easiest way to make food more bindable or cheaper essentially is to have cheap ingredients and sugar, right?
Yeah.
And the incidence of such products was actually increasing in the market food wise. On the second hand, like on the other side, companies that were emerging, being branded as health companies, health food companies, were actually doing a lot of mis-selling as well, which was
Hmm.
basically that every, like for example, somebody comes to you and says that the biggest misnomer, by the way, in this space is sugar and jaggery, right? And says that, oh, sugar is bad, but you can switch it with jaggery. Like we used to meet people where people were diabetic and they used to say that, oh, I'm completely off sugar, but my like glucose levels are not reducing. And I was like, why would they not reduce? Like, you're off sugar. They're like, no, I've replaced it with jaggery, and it's 92% sugar. So that awareness wasn't there, and the
Yeah.
food companies marketing themselves as, now this bar is healthy because we've replaced sugar with jaggery, is massive mis-selling.
Yeah.
Same thing as like basically noodles versus atta noodles, right?
Yeah.
Almost the same glycemic index.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with processed food. I mean, it was a World War invention, right? That you have to sort of like scale foods and you have to reduce the incidence of germ infection. That's it. But then the modern one does not need a lot of processed foods. We can scale up our natural food supply chain. And we saw that this is a problem that's actually becoming more and more grave every year. In the year 2020, we had estimated, like the world had estimated, that almost 800 million people would be in the metabolic disorder bucket. We overshot that by a huge margin, by almost 20%, which is a huge number, 200 million
Wow.
people.
Wow.
And by the year 2030, it's estimated that almost half of the world will have one type of metabolic disorder. Uh, and there is a very high chance that that number could be 70% of the world, unless we actually do something to solve it. So this is the reason why we thought that if this is a 20-year bet, this is the right time to do it. The thing that will be required is time and money, of course. And in some cases, time is also money, or money is also time. But if this is our life mission, then we have infinite time. And of course, if we live longer, of course.
Wow. Wow. On it's quite a philosophical note, but
Yeah.
serious as
Yeah.
well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but what's to maybe add to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
This, while this is so deep and this problem, I mean, I'm sure the healthcare industry talks about these problems a lot, and considers these as serious. And uh, a- as you guys, why did you choose to, let's say, take this on head on? Like, and
Yeah.
again, from that, from the lens of what could be the entry path for you to start solving this, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
making people more aware, making people, let's say, choose uh, choose to make themselves better. What
Yeah.
did you see?
Yeah.
What did you see? That did you see in the, what was there early you focus group testing that you guys did? Was there anything else, at other market research, which sort of gave you more insights that, okay, people will take this up beyond, let's say, the athletes and people who were
Yeah.
already probably doing it?
Yeah. So I think for us, what we when we started building, of course, right, what we saw was that there are two schools today, right? One is the extreme end of hospitals and theoretically chronic care centers, and the other end is like the gyms. So
Mm.
there is nothing in the middle, right? So you have to choose. Like if you are sick, you're like, okay, I have to go to the doctor. Today, if someone says I'm going to the doctor, it only means that okay, there is a problem, right? They
Mm.
will never go just to like okay casually meet them and like
Yes.
check on their health status and all of that, right? If someone's going to the gym, that means oh, he's like a gym goer, he's like like doing something very very extreme about his fitness, right? There's nothing in the middle where which is a combination of again both like health and fitness as a whole, right? And I think when we were looking at the universe of the space, right, we realized that there is again so much to do as a technology company which can create so much impact and create a bridge between the two, right?
Mm.
And we realize that again that, as Mohit was saying, the problem statement is so large that education around this is the biggest fundamental it'll create the maximum amount of impact, right? Because most people don't even know that they are on their road to getting pre-diabetes in the next few years, and then turning diabetic in next let's say 8 to 10 years, right? If you know this fact right today, you will be of course making those changes to push it out, right? Most people don't know, that's why they continue doing. They're like, okay, I'm eating this, nothing is going to happen to me. But then like an incident of acidity is a sign that you already are getting towards that. It's even that micro, right? But people are like, oh, I'll just pop a pill and I'm like good to go, right? You're just
Mm.
pushing like a chronic visit, like by by years. If you just make that change, if you just skip that meal, or you just cut out on your calories, it could just push it out, right? So I think there is again it's such a huge problem, but people don't talk about it because
Yeah.
it's like slow poison. When you're eating something like again that's why diabetes is such a it's actually a dangerous disease, because your lifestyle does not deteriorate as much as someone getting a fracture maybe, right? You're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
theoretically handicapped, but your organs or your body is actually not performing at forget 100%, it's at 60 or 70%. You're always in a state of stress. Your organs aren't functioning. You can't think straight. You can't be productive as a whole, right? and
Yeah.
and and I think that education is key, and then of course the impact around it, right? What do you do? There are like thousand things to do, but if people are aware that, okay, probably I also have it. If 85% of the world has it, then there's a
Yeah.
there's a high chance that I'm also in that boat. People will invest into it, right? It's about investment, right? That
Right.
people today think that, okay, is the device expensive, or this technology expensive, but they'll never think when they go out and eat, right? They will go and spend how much ever
Yeah.
into like a club, or or a dinner, right? They'll not even
Yeah.
think. They're like, oh, it's a luxury place, I can spend it out there, right? But people are changing their mindset, today, and getting into a space where they're comfortable with it. They're like, okay, this is not,
Yeah.
it's a great spend, in fact, right? It'll make me productive for longer, right? So
Right.
It's
those are
investment.
our thoughts, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, still evolving, still still figuring our
Good.
space, if you ask.
that that's a good point you bring up, because again, for many people who may be listening and finding out about Ultrahuman for the first time, uh, could you talk us through what the actual, let's say, the combination of hardware and software that you actually have built? Like, what is the CGM? I mean, the continuous glucose monitor has existed before this. Like you said, most people who, let's say, went into that chronic diabetes stage only started used to use them, but now you've made it a little more commonplace. You've made it as part of, let's say, preventive fitness as well. So how was that? How did Talk us a little bit about the tech behind that as well, and obviously
Sure.
the layers that you've built on top.
Sure, absolutely. So, Ultrahuman is a metabolic fitness platform. We use the glucose biomarker to give you insights about your own metabolism, and your metabolism is responsible for both your like things like your energy levels, your ability to be anabolic and catabolic. Anabolic is basically essentially building like growth factors, and your catabolic is breaking down energy,
Yeah.
and ability to lose fat, lose like body mass, etc. All of that is affected by your state of metabolism, apart from energy levels, right? Having a metabolic disorder or having improper metabolism leads to things like diabetes, pre-diabetes, PCOS in women, hypertension, certain forms of cancers, and Alzheimer's. And the glucose biomarker is interesting because glucose is also the fuel for your brain. So
Mhm.
it's not just basically the fuel like that's actually used by your muscles and for physical activity, but also essentially for cognitive activities. So when you optimize your glucose biomarker, you end up also having cognitive benefits in terms of focus and basically having much better levels of mood, etc. Right?
Right.
So the technology that exists, the glucose monitoring technology that exists today, it reads glucose from the interstitial tissue. So essentially, you have your blood, which is your extracellular fluid, and then there is another extracellular fluid called the interstitial fluid, right? It's the fluid that sits right beneath your skin, and the technology essentially has a small carbon filament wick. It's a hair thin filament which goes within the skin and essentially, like a wick, starts reading from your interstitial tissue. So it's a phenomenal piece of technology because it's semi-invasive. It's not completely invasive because it does
Yeah.
not sort of like prick you, right? So for people who have used glucometers, pricking themselves every few minutes is actually quite irritating and also quite hard.
Mm.
So this
Yeah.
sort of like gives you a way to continuously measure the glucose levels, and continuous glucose levels are very, very different from point in time glucose levels because the sheer amount of data that you get around variability and zone of glucose, etc. Now this technology has been out there for a long, long time. Like I think 20 years back, it was primarily being used for type 1 diabetics, because type 1 diabetics even today are quite dependent on the glucose continuous glucose values to actually figure out how much insulin they should be taking in, and basically
Yeah.
how should they be regulating their glucose levels. It's sort of like life saving for them.
Yeah.
And um, over time, what has happened is that people realized that measuring glucose could be effective for type 2 diabetes as well, which sort of like is the metabolic disorder that I was talking about. And now we're extending it to other everything else out there, like even fitness,
Yeah.
saying that you're using glucose as a way to control a chronic disorder. Um, if you can read it much ahead in advance, and optimize your lifestyle, you wouldn't need to have a chronic disorder at all, right? So it's usage of,
Yeah.
by the way, the core science is the same. The factors like variability, time within and under within the target glucose range and the average glucose, the factors that we use are almost the same factors that somebody having a chronic disorder will also use, but the thresholds are different.
Right.
The algorithmic weightages are quite different. So that's the fundamental difference. And it's an evolving piece of technology. I think the if you read about the history of glucometers and continuous glucose monitors, it's really interesting because it's both. It has a lot of political affluence as well, in terms
Oh,
of
is
like
it?
how people used to think about. Like, it's sort of like the favorite product for the pharma industry in some ways, because it's a the not the CGMs but the glucometers are very high margin, and even
Hmm.
like over the last few years they've actually become very very low margin, because like of hyper competition. And
Right.
um, the thing with glucometers is that every large consumer company, like in the past, many large consumer companies like Samsung, Apple, they have made the claims that they will actually own the glucose monitoring space.
Wow.
And Abbott
Okay.
and Dexcom have been the only companies that have actually made significant amount of progress in this space. So clearly seems like everybody is interested,
Hmm.
to own a piece of human health.
Yeah, and also I feel that the reason for that is, if you see globally, there are tons of thousands of wearables, right? For like for
Right.
tracking steps and for tracking workouts and everything, right? But there is no wearable for tracking food, right? Like your nutrition, right? So it's like, for everything, food and nutrition is like the primary
Yeah.
impact
It's the
stack. So it's
input
like, if
variable.
you
Yeah.
yeah, it's input variable, right? So you control that everything. Like, you don't even have to go to the gym to kind of lose weight, if you look at it, right? Because it's 80% food and nutrition, and 20% your physical activity, right? All of us are
Right.
overfueled. We are eating more and sitting more, right? And that's what
Yeah.
is causing problem. It's not that we eating wrong, of course, like cutting out all the packaged stuff, and all the noodles and all that. But I'm saying, if theoretically all of us are eating, let's say, clean food, it's about the fueling, right? All of us are hyper
Correct.
fueled, right? And since there is no variable for food, that's why this space is open, right? In a lot of ways. Because you eat so many times during the day. Like, no one
Yeah.
workouts
Yeah.
more than 1 or 2 times a day. It's like, people working on more than 2 times are athletes, or like, who are training for the, even though they don't, in fact, they also,
Yeah.
they train very precisely for a, like maybe max 2 times a day, right? So, but you eat all the time. You're like, always, all of us are munching. Um, you're doing something or the other in the kitchen, right? So you don't even realize what is causing what impact on your body, right? And also, glucose
Yeah.
does not impact by just your food, right? It's about everything that you do. It's like, if you sleep late, you'll see impact on your glucose.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
like let's say, sleep for long on a weekend, you'll see a different impact on your body. Stress is such a huge actor in our life today. All of us are working like much longer than we were working in the past. So of course we have different levels of stress in our life now. It could be because of food, it could be because of like the work that we do, or it could be personal as well. And that's what impacts your like
Yeah.
body state as well, right? So there's so much data inside that one stream of glucose. And that is what you can just sit and optimize. That's like the beauty of it.
And I know you guys have built a wonderful ecosystem now around that. Obviously, like the CGM data, the glucose data is obviously the main, let's say, input. But now, as the ultra human product has evolved, I've seen that you guys have obviously integrated everything else, right? So this whole tracking of what you ate, to how much you slept, to how it all affects and builds this, bunch of biomarkers, as you call it, uh, which give you a, let's say, a status of your health. On that, sort of like, as far as closing notes go, what can we expect more? And do you want to share some insights beyond your cryptic tweets and Instagram posts that you guys keep doing, on what is next? What are you guys building? Is it more hardware? Is it, like Mohit, you said earlier, build your own hardware? Is it, what's coming up, and to the ultra human journey?
So you already know, but uh, we are of course building our own hardware, because we want to own the experience completely. And the other reason is that we want to introduce more biomarkers that are relevant, right? So relevance is the key here. Today, if you look at your glucose pattern, you actually are able to figure out glucose gets metabolized in a certain way in your body. Let's say, essentially, you take 100 grams of glucose, drink it in the morning, and then you generate a specific graph. And the platform will tell you today, Cyborg tells you um, what that means for your health, like where in the metabolic score range are you. But it does not tell you what led to this problem or what led to this efficiency, for example, right? For example, some people might generate a really nice glucose response, so they don't know what really helped them. As well as some people, for the same 100 grams of glucose on different days, you might generate different types of response. So there is some difference. The 100 grams of glucose is the same, but then you're generating
Mm.
different responses. Now that difference is because of your stress levels, your sleep sufficiency or deficiency, your activity levels, your state of insulin resistance, etc. All of that. Your microbiome, your genetics also play a major role in some of these things. So over the last few months, or the last few months actually, we have tried to add more variables to the equation to help you figure out what was the reason why you were able to metabolize this really well. The simplest way to understand this is that if you have your favorite food on a Sunday when you're relaxed, when you've had a morning walk and you have had a great night of sleep the previous day, the platform can actually tell you that having 20 minutes of extra REM helped you metabolize your favorite sweet dish, basically.
Wow.
Um, Something as simple as that. So, or it can tell you that uh, the health food that you ate did not metabolize well because you had sleep deficit. So it works both ways. So it tells you broadly
Yeah,
that food is not the only issue. Like your body, like it's as simple as like the same pizza that we used to eat in 20s and in 30s behaves differently. The
it's
pizza
different.
hasn't
Yeah,
changed. Yeah,
yeah,
it's different, right? So why the pizza hasn't changed? The human body has changed. We have aged, right? And what has aged? Our ability to metabolize glucose has aged. Our basically our you can say various hormonal systems have aged. So if we can fix some of those, not everything,
yeah,
because unless we reverse aging, if you can fix some of those factors, then potentially we are on the right path. And the new hardware that we are coming up with, it will be in the ring form factor. It'll sit right on one of these fingers. We intend to make it very very minimal and without a screen and without notification, so that it does not disturb your or take away your you can say attention in life. Um, that's what's going to come up next, and you should hear
very cool.
about that very very soon. Yeah.
Very cool. We will obviously be on the lookout, and beyond Mohit Vatsal, both of you guys gave us so much, to, let's say, think about, and of course, people who are new to Ultra Human and Cyborg and everything that's part of this entire experience, I'm sure are a lot interested in learning more. So, what's the best place to reach either of you or the platform itself? Shout out to anything else you want to do on what people should where to find you. What's a
Awesome.
Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, Vatsal, please.
So I think we are forever available. So it's either Twitter or LinkedIn or we're very active. Of course, we talk to all our users that are out there. You know, take their experiences in and kind of build the platform in a community way, right? So of course you're part of the community, we
Yeah,
love that where we are, because it's a small crowd who's interested in today, right? Because they want to invest into their health, and we believe that okay, this crowd will create a larger user base eventually, right? And I
right.
think that is why, of course, we kind of reach out to all our users and talk to them individually, understand what that is. So definitely, Twitter is the space where both of us are super active. So please, if you have any
What are your
doubts,
handles? You
queries,
want to
yeah.
shout out your handles as well, so that for people listening in.
Yeah, it's Vatsal Singhal, and that's it. So,
Mine is deep purpled. I'm a deep purple fan. So of course,
Yes, amongst your various interest, Mohit, I must say, now that we know
I also have the
from what
Gmail
we
ID,
heard.
by the way.
Wow.
Deepurple@gmail.com. Yeah, yeah. So I could probably make it an NFT eventually, but I think the best way the best way to reach out, in my opinion, is to become a cyborg and join the cyborg army. There is special love for people who become a cyborg, of course.
Of course.
We love those people because they are the OG biohackers of the world, not just India. This is a new emerging trend. These are people who are taking responsibility of their own health and essentially sort of like becoming they're the first curious people who are actually going to change the world, right? First set of curious
Yeah.
people who are going to change the world. So I think that's the probably the best way. The Cyborg Army Slack group and Twitter as well. But I think primarily become a cyborg, join the Cyborg Army.
Awesome, awesome. Let's hope a lot of folks who listen today definitely are interested in becoming that. And of course, there's so much more to learn about this space. And kudos to you guys for what you guys are building, what you guys are how you're influencing people to become better and be better for themselves. So thank you for that. Thank you for the journey. We will obviously be looking forward to all the cool tech and gadgets you throw our way. Uh, and thank you guys so much for doing this chat. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Vatsal.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shraditya.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And for everyone listening, of course, please make sure you send a rating, a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, and go say hi to the Ultra Human team or become a cyborg like we all are, and get your patch of honor. And tune in next time. Thank you.